Alrighty, well, welcome back. I forgot we had next. Oh, we do. It's time to talk some WNBA and not talk about what we eat and who we're dating or anything like that, because we have Meghan McPeak, which I know Meghan McPeak is against me being on the Bachelorette.
I saw her tweet that.
Yeah, she is against it. We have text about this. She also believes that God has someone out there for me. He is just working on them, and it's okay to be single because I got my girl Meghan, and we're good. We're good. We're so good. Meghan McPeak, thank you for waking up this morning and joining us in this lovely conversation. We want to talk about the WNBA. It wrapped up the season last night, and the Seattle Storm went home with the big, beautiful trophy. And when you see this, what Seattle was able to do, they're able to sweep this Las Vegas Aces team. But Seattle, I think what everyone learned is that this team was just jam-packed with so many weapons and so much talent.
Yeah, I'm 100% against The Bachelor and The Bachelorette. It's a joke, but that's a different story for another day we can get into. And CJ, I think it's only the divisional series and the actual World Series that the garbage cans come out for Houston, so keep that in mind.
Gotcha, my fault, Megan.
But yeah, the Seattle Storm, I mean, when you look at the roster, and they even said themselves, they were the only team that came in at 100% full strength, not just when it comes to, players dealing with nagging injuries or anything like that. That was the exact roster that they put together. They didn't have anybody opt out that they had to refill places and roster spots. They came in with their 100% full strength roster and were able to run the gamut from start to finish. I know there was a couple instances throughout the season that they had, a couple losses that people kind of turned their heads at and were wondering, okay, is this the actual Seattle Storm we're used to, or are we seeing, father time, mother time kind of attack Sue Bird in her final season, if it is her final season? But they turned a corner, and Gary Kloppenberg had them ready to go. And I think a lot of credit goes out to Coach Kloppenberg as well, too. This is the second time he had to step in for Dan Hughes. For your viewers and listeners that are not familiar, Dan Hughes, unfortunately, after battling cancer, his immune system is compromised. So the medical doctors and medical team, not just with the Storm, but the WNBA, they felt it was in his best interest not to go into the bubble for health and safety concerns. So Gary Kloppenberg, for the second time, stepped right in and did a fantastic job. So I think a lot of credit goes to him as well, too. But, I mean, when you have a player like Sue Bird, Brianna Stewart, and then you add in a Natasha Howard, who, they got her in early foul trouble. But not a lot of people were talking about Jewel Lloyd, also known as the quote-unquote Gold Mamba, given that nickname from the late, great Kobe Bryant. And she in this series, with the exception of one game, she looked exactly like the prototypical Mamba mentality out there. And, she had a silent near triple-double in a closeout elimination game to sweep a Las Vegas Aces team. And I think when you look at Las Vegas, they were fatigued. They were tired coming into this series. They went to, 5 against Connecticut and had everything taken out of them. I think fatigue caught them at the wrong time, and fatigue did not catch the Seattle Storm, and that's what was on display in the 3-game sweep.
Well, and you look at Jewel Lloyd, just 27, Brianna Stewart, 26, Jordan Canada, 25. The youth on this team, and let's just call it what it is, Sue Bird is timeless. I don't care what age she is, she continues to play like she is in her 20s as well. When you look at how deep this Storm team is, how young they are, and with a leader like Brianna Stewart out there, for her to come off of that Achilles injury just less than 2 years ago and do what she did in this series, the trajectory of the Storm looking forward. I know Sue Bird said yesterday it's too early to call them a dynasty team. Minnesota has set that bar very high. But is that attainable realistically in the future for the Seattle Storm?
Oh, 1,000%, Jess, without a doubt. And I know, Minnesota right now is in that conversation with one of the best dynasties in sports history. The Houston Comets as well, too, are in that conversation. And, you look at Sue Bird, 4 titles in 17 seasons. Like, if the Seattle Storm are not in that conversation, then I don't know what people are paying attention to when it comes to the WNBA and the Seattle Storm. I personally think, even, with the fact that they have a couple more to catch Minnesota, they're in that conversation, because right now they're tied with the Houston Comets with 4 titles. Yes, I understand the Houston Comets did the first 4 and 4 straight, which is nearly impossible to do because we haven't really seen it done in the modern era of professional sports, or, in the quote unquote big three sports, when you look at NBA, NHL, and MLB, it's nearly unattainable. But the Houston Comets did it. And I put Seattle in the conversation of being in the dynasty conversation. I don't understand how some cannot, when you've gotten 4 titles in 17 years of having one player in your franchise. And I'm kind of with Sue in the fact that I don't pay attention to the ages of these players, because they, Sue's a few years older than me, and it makes me feel old as well too. And I know I tweeted it out, but she easily has shut down the how it started and how it's going social media challenge with her post last night of her holding a baby, which I'm thinking was a family picture that she has. We all know it wasn't actually Brianna Stewart, and then her and Brianna Stewart hugging after winning last night. I literally has shut down that challenge, so nobody else needs to post anything more, because that's the ultimate flex.
She definitely did. I posted my Chick-fil-A ice cream, and yeah, she definitely shut me up real quick. I was like, darn it, she got a better one. Definitely did. Megan, on the flip side of this, let's talk about this Las Vegas Aces team and what they were able to do. I mean, it's still a huge accomplishment to make it into the WNBA Finals and to still be a contender. Yes, they got swept, but for Las Vegas Aces and what they have, and you mentioned that Seattle Storm, they came full strength. The Aces did not, and you have a lot of their stars out. Asia Wilson was absolutely amazing, dominant, MVP of the season. But we forget about Liz, Kelsey, De'Erica. When you look at what this Las Vegas Aces team can also do moving forward, how excited are you to see if they can be full strength? I know Liz is a free agent, and so what that could look like. But for the Aces, it's still a great future ahead of them.
Oh, of course. And when you have a coach who's one of the most historic ones in the WNBA, and Bill Laimbeer, I think their biggest difficulty with this roster, and this is making the presumption that they return all of their free agents, to your point, Megan, Liz Cambage being one of them. And I know they would have loved to have Kelsey Plum. I think she would have been a game changer for them this season. Unfortunately, as she's preparing to go into the bubble this season, tears her Achilles. So now it'll be fun to see her comeback season. Will this be the final? Was this the final season that we saw Angel McCoughtry? We don't know. And then to your point as well too, De'Erica Hamby, losing her in the Connecticut series, I think changed the way that they played against Seattle, and I think that was a bigger miss with an injury than people were thinking or expecting against a Seattle team. I don't know how much she would have changed it. I still think Seattle would have won the series. Do they sweep? Maybe. Do they, do a gentlewoman's sweep, if that's even a word, with pushing this to a fourth game, and Las Vegas gets one? I'm not sure, but I do think that was a huge missing piece for them in the finals. But you have a player in her third season who put up the numbers she did in a really unprecedented season in Asia Wilson, and what she was able to do. She was playing nearly the entire game in every single series, and even in the regular season this year. And she was putting the team on her shoulders and trying to carry them. And the fact that she was getting, at some points, double and triple teamed and still getting shots off and making them is insane to see. But I think, as to my earlier mention, the biggest difficulty that they're going to have is how do they play Liz Cambage and Asia Wilson together? Because last season, in the 2019 season, we saw how difficult it was. There was times where they struggled having them both on the floor together, because neither one of them can really go outside of 18 feet with a jump shot. I know Liz has hit a couple threes in her career, but that's not consistent. Hitting one every 7 games as a 6'8" player, not consistent. If you're going to stretch the floor, I need you to be knocking them down 2-3 a game, and she doesn't do that. She doesn't offer that, and that's not enough. She's a fantastic player and nearly one of the most unguardable players that the WNBA has ever seen. But Bill Laimbeer has to figure out how he can play them together. If he's going to play old school basketball, typical bad boys basketball that he's so familiar with, and playing 2 bigs on the floor, he needs to find a way to play them together and still have them be as dominant as they can be when they're on the floor separately. but together. And if they can figure that out, the Aces are going to be a team to be reckoned with. When you have a Kayla McBride on the outside, I know her shot was she was struggling with it all season this year. And then you add back Kelsey Plum and the way that she can stroke the ball as well, too. They can be very dangerous, in the next couple of years.
Well, and Asia Wilson calling it the most painful loss of her career. I personally would not want to face a scorned Asia Wilson, so it'll be something to see next year. Megan, the start of this bubble this season was for Breonna Taylor. That narrative continued throughout the entirety of it, and last night they said this was for Breonna Taylor. When you look at the WNBA's continued conversation on social justice while in the wobble, what will go down as the biggest takeaway from this wobble season outside of the actual games being played?
I think Jess' simple answer is the fact that they stuck to their conversation. They went in, as you said, with a vision and a purpose to make their voices be heard on a daily basis, whether it was games or practices. Every time that the players, the 144 players, spoke to the media, they made sure to mention either doing the census, registering to vote, and social justice. And, when you think about the fact of the census and voting, that ties into social justice and how you can get social justice reform. So they went in with a plan. They had a plan to begin the season, and they stuck by it every single day of the WNBA season. And I think that is the biggest takeaway. They proved that you can have a unprecedented season with being in the bubble, and you can still stick to the conversation points that you have. And we saw it from the NBA as well, too. So whether we see something similar for the 2021 season, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what they can do with, a pandemic still going on. But the fact that the players went in with a plan, they continued to stick to it. And when things got to a point where they had enough, they took a stand, and they made a stand, and they made it very clear what they were doing, and they continued the message going forward. And you have players, like an Ariel Atkins, who's very, very quiet, very, reserved in speaking, and can be very shy at times. We saw a completely different side of her when the WNBA shut down that day. And a lot of that goes to the fact that, I don't want to sound biased, but it's been said and it's been known in the public eye, the Mystics were the team that were ready to forfeit a game because of what happened to Jacob Blake, and other teams followed suit. So the WNBA had a situation, and they showed how unity can work in that situation by having one team prepared to take a forfeit and the rest of the league say, no, we got your back. We're going to rock with you. And they continued that throughout the entire season up until yesterday. And, to your point, Jewel Lloyd speaking with ESPN's Holly Rowe and reminding people this season was for Breonna Taylor, but not just her, but every other Black woman who has been disenfranchised and disserviced in the United States of America. And the fact that, a lot of them are now going to go overseas, they're still continuing that message as well, too, even overseas. So that's immensely impressive. And my respect goes out to every single one of those players, both who opted in and opted out, because a lot of them were also doing work off the floor. Natasha Cloud, Renee Montgomery have kept the conversation going in the forefront off the court as well too this season. So my immense respect goes out to all those women for doing what they did this season and continuing the conversation.
Yes, Megan, the WNBA, I have no doubt that they will continue the conversation. They will. And also in that Jewel Lloyd interview with Holly Rose, she also said she dedicated this win to Kobe Bryant. It's why she wears the number 24. It's why she wore the gold shoes yesterday in that game, because Kobe was the first person who believed in her. And so it was such a very special moment to see not only them mention Kobe, the Bryant family, the Gigi Bryant, and also Breonna Taylor. They have just done so many wonderful things. And throughout this season, you have to mention Kobe because he did so much for women's basketball. And he had to have loved to not just only see the women use their voices, but also seeing how a lot of fans, new fans coming on board. This was the most televised game in WNBA history, and people were talking about some WNBA games. As someone who calls the WNBA games and also who loves the WNBA, how special was it to see so many fans surround the WNBA and embrace them and also support the league?
Well, the simple answer, Megan, is to everyone and all the haters who said no one wants to watch the WNBA. Men lie, women lie, but numbers don't.
Absolutely.
There it
Amazing
is.
what happens when you put them on TV.
Yes,
I
yeah.
need
Give
more of
people the
that.
But
opportunity to watch.
And exactly. And CJ, to your point, put women's sports, not just basketball, put women's sports on television. Because even early on, the women's soccer tournament, the NWSL, I think, I might have had the letters mixed up, but
No, you got it.
when they were on television, people were watching. Even WNBA players and media members were watching and supporting, because women's sports on television does not happen often enough. So when we get it, we have to support, whether you know the sport or not. And at the end of the day, the ratings numbers don't lie. People were watching. And I think the best thing that happened, especially too, was the fact that you have the NBA finals and the WNBA finals happening at the exact same time, and we got we got 3 games that were essentially doubleheader situations on the ESPN and ABC family of networks. Last night was a doubleheader action with a little bit of time in between, but it allowed people to watch pregame stuff, watch the game, watch postgame coverage, eat something, refresh themselves, and then get set for a 9 p.m. tip-off in the NBA last night. So, people supporting. And also, too, NBA players were watching. And they were there. Some of them are, voluntary practices and whatnot. So the simple answer to my, to answer your question, as I said earlier, the viewership numbers don't lie, and people can, put that to bed, that no one's going to watch the WNBA.
The WNBA is so important. Women's sports are so important. Meghan, thank you so much for joining us throughout the entirety of the Wubble. We appreciate your insight. We hope to have you back next season, whenever that season starts up. But thank you so much.
Jess, Meghan, CJ, thank you guys for having me all season. I appreciate it. Stay safe.
Thanks, Meghan. Talk to you soon. And we can also have Meghan talk about some NBA action.